Hello and welcome back. So this week we're going to talk about the assigned exercises for Chapter 5, and that's going to be Editing Sketched Objects 1. So first things first, you have a very basic, I guess kind of hourglass shape you're going to draw, and I'm just going to roughly show how it'll look. Turn on ortho mode, draw a horizontal line, and then I've already goofed because we're actually coming from this end. So I'm going to start another line, and then I'm going to make sure it's aligned to this end point. And I'll do the same here, turning ortho back on, and then finally connecting it. So from here, it has used the erase tool. Now, me personally, I would just rather select the item and hit delete on the keyboard, but I guess it's kind of cool if you do like using the erase tool to use this. You hit erase, type in last, hit enter. And as you notice, it kind of pre-selects that item there. So then I think I just hit enter and it deletes it. Yeah. So what it wants you to do is do the erase command again, type in last, hit enter, and there you go. Finally, one more time, type in erase, last, and go. Which that's fine. You can also choose erase from here, and that works. You could do the same up here. You don't have to do the last thing. But to me, if you're going to delete everything, it's just going to be quicker to select it and hit delete on the keyboard. Pretty straightforward, a lot quicker. So that's what I would advise. And then up next, let's see, is exercise 4, which is going to be on page 511. And that's going to be a metric template. So I'm going to whip out a metric B here. And let's start with that middle circle. Most of the stuff is in diameter, so I'm just going to, let's see, where do I want to draw? Let's do about right here. So let's do 200, 150. You can see the coordinates down here, by the way, if you're ever curious where I get these ideas from. It's 200, 150. And then the size is going to be 20. We have another one that's going to be concentric to it, which will be 40. And then let's see here. So we have 60 from the center over. So I'm going to hit F8 to turn ortho on. And I'm just going to draw some projection lines both ways. It's 120 overall, so that means it's 60 on each side. And we will have some circles that are 15 diameter and 30. Whoop. That was 300, so. Okay, so now I could go ahead and draw the same, but I'm just going to copy. So I will choose the center point after I selected them, choose the end point, hit escape, and then we can delete these lines. Okay, so this part's a little tricky. I've talked about it in a few other solution videos, but you have to make sure in order to draw lines tangent on both sides, make sure you deselect in your snap options everything but tangent for this part. And then when you do that, you will get these tangent suggestions, and you're going to just basically snap to them as you go. So I'm just going to click each, hit escape, click, escape, click. And that's pretty much it. So we can go ahead and add in our center marks. Go ahead and flip to the annotate tab. And make sure you always choose the largest center mark. The reason for that is if you don't, you end up with like this really tiny thing. So if I delete this for a minute, you can see it. It doesn't match the book. Basically the idea, oh no, went too far. Basically the idea is you always want the biggest circle because it encapsulates the part shape best. So keep that in mind. And then let's see, I'm trying to think, is this required at this point? I don't think you have to detail yet. Let's see here. So detailing is not quite required yet. It is encouraged, so I won't bore you with dimensioning all of this, but it is pretty straightforward. So then we're going to jump over to page 513, and this one's going to be pretty basic, honestly. Varying levels of enjoyment on it, I guess, but we're going to use the offset command here. So I'm just going to draw a circle randomly, wherever, just somewhere in the title block here. And then I will do the offset command. For me, I just like to do O enter, and then give it a value. Let's try 0.125, and then I'm just going to click and just offset some circles inward and outward. Looks like there's 5, so let's do one more. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing with this AutoCAD. Now, this is kind of derpy, but you know, basically what you're trying to do is create one side of the letter and then offsetting the other. So I'm going to choose the outside first. So let's do on the A, kind of slanted line, and then let's do an arc from it. Now earlier, if you recall, I turned off a lot of our snaps. So if you didn't go back, like I didn't, go back and turn these on as needed. I think that'll be good. Okay. So now I'm just going to do like a little arc here. And I always forget you got to do the midpoint first, so we'll do something a little bit like that with a little curly Q. It's not got to be perfect. You know, you can see like it's not like tangent, but that's fine. And then we're going to do the same over here. And I'll just choose somewhere arbitrarily out here. It could have been steeper, but you know, it's not, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not really worried about it. How about that? That looks better. So now we can do that same deal. Offset, enter, 0.125, enter. And the value is something I chose. You could do it to a varying size that you like more. We can go to the U. Let's do like the inner part. How about that? And I'm just gonna choose the ending here. About like this. Do a little curly Q at the end. And I really messed that up because the snap got me. And then we can just connect the points here. And it looks terrible, but you know, there's a reason you use the text command. You know, it's not meant for you to actually draw these things manually like this. And then from here, you know, you could probably the easiest way would be an extend command. And I can just extend this on past and extend this to meet it. And then we can just trim it back. Delete this little tidbit here. It's a terrible U. And then we can do the T. Just a straight line. Line it cuts through. Okay, same deal. Offset. And see, it all depends which way you offset, whether you have to do these trim and extends. In this case, I'm just going to actually move it and snap it to the endpoint. Doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, you can already see that my U is a little too far over, technically. Put it about right there. And we can do the O pretty quickly. It's just a circle. And as needed, you know, like I was saying, you can move things to wherever you want it. It's not great, but and we can do the C. Something like that. And if you notice, every time I'm actually hitting enter, I don't, or typing in 0.125, I actually don't need to. It's suggested every time, so technically, if you've already used it, you can just hit enter instead of trying to type it. And then I'm going to lazily copy this A. Well, let's copy it with this so I can grab it. And then we can finally draw the D. I might have put it a little too close, but that's okay. Now it looks like technically it snaps to it. I'm going to make it go a little bit past it so it's easy. I can just trim it that way. And then it has a good little arc on it. Let's see, does it touch the bottom? It does. So let's just snap it here. And then I'll just trim this little snippet off. So now we can do another arc. With a not great curly Q on it. Let's do that one more time. There we go. Okay. So now this one we're going to offset this way, and we'll just do this one inward. There you go. You know, wouldn't advise you ever do anything drawing, but you know, if you for whatever reason wanted to do some custom lettering, well, there you go. You could spend a lot of time and make something nice. I wouldn't really go about this though. But you know, feel free to play with it, make things look a little better, more realistic. I'm really not going to be critical of this as long as it's ballpark like it. You know, you get the point. So up next is exercise 6, and we're going to jump all the way to page 527. So this one is going to be in Imperial Units. I'm going to open up another B. And let's see, let's shoot to draw this. How about at 5, 8? There we go. Okay, so that's going to be the far left end of the nut, if you will. So I'm going to draw a line straight over 2.35. Okay. And this will essentially be our center line. So it's going to be, let's see, what's half of 0.95? It's going to be 0.475 offset both ways for the nut. And then 0.55 for the other side, which is 0.275 both ways. Actually, I forgot what I said. 0.275. Okay. So we can offset it there and there. And then it's getting a little convoluted, so let's draw some rest of this part out here. So we need to offset 0.6 for the nut. And then let's go ahead and trim off this part to clear up the picture a little bit. Okay. So next we're given that the nut from 0.25 from the edges, you have these little lines. And I will go and trim off the shaft portion here so it doesn't get in the way visibly. We can go ahead and delete this. Yep. So let's do that. And then we have 0.35 from this end. That bit. Okay. So now we pretty much got our part. The only thing we need now is the center line, and ideally you could go ahead and dimension it as well. I'm going to choose these two lines for my center line, and then I will just select the line, grab the square grip, and move it to the end. And then yeah, essentially, you know, you can go through and dimension, and I would say that to validate yourself, you should probably go through and dimension these just to make sure you're right. A lot of times people mess this one up, for instance, but it's up to you. But for now, I'm going to copy it from that center point again. And let's just move down. Let's see. Let's go to 5, 6. That's the point we've chose for that one. And then we're going to just go through and add in a fillet set, and also it looks like a chamfer. So it's going to be 23 degrees. So we're going to make sure that we have polar on by hitting F10 or clicking that. And let's change this tracking settings. I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to put an angle of 1. So what this will do, in case you know you haven't seen some of the videos to this point, is it enables you to ensure that you're not drawing it at an arbitrary angle. Instead of it showing like 22.22222 or whatever, it's going to be a guaranteed angle number, 23, 24, and nothing in between. So for some reason my line's not showing white, so I'm going to restart there. And I'm just going to wait until it shows 23. And I can do the same over here. Make sure it's got those dotted lines implying it was snapped. And we're going to do from 360 down 23. So that should be 337, I believe. Yes. Okay. Then we can trim. And there you go. Now, unfortunately, you do have to move the grip back. It's a little dynamic. Sometimes that's good or bad. And then I think it may have adjusted this side as well. It did. It basically just shifted it to the left. So now we're going to do our tangent radius circles, and they are R.1. Okay, so I've talked about this a lot, but you know, you can choose side, give it a value, enter, and then once you've done that, it's a lot quicker because you can just repeat. So I can click on it, click side, right click, and it places. Basically, right clicking is the same as hitting enter. It'll go ahead and choose that value you used last time. So I can pretty quickly get in here and throw these in, and it looks like we're going to have some on this side as well. And take note, I wouldn't advise hitting space. What happens when you try to repeat the command is it actually, and I don't know why, it'll create a radius circle instead, a center point radius. Don't know why. What's up with that, Autodesk? But you know, it's what it does. So you just kind of have to painstakingly go through and click it over and over. Okay. So now, you know, you can go through and trim. Usually what I like to do is, to make it easier to visualize, I first get these corners. You know, it's pretty easy to rule that stuff out, and you can do the same over here. So then from here, it's best to get the body of work, and if you do this right, you don't have to delete anything. I really don't worry too much about that though. I like to get just the meat of it, okay? So then from there you can look and clearly tell that you've got this little tidbit here that doesn't belong, okay? And then you know this part should, but that means that this area doesn't need to have that. And I'm gonna do this side first. I can trim this meat away, same here. And then we know since the other one didn't have this part, we can trim it here. I can go ahead and select all of this, choose this little point, and there we go. So now we've got one whole side done just like that. I can do the same thing over here. Delete out that. And get this little tidbit. And there we go. You know, just like that. Not too bad, right? You know, it's really all about just knowing what to trim, where to trim. Sometimes, you know, you may do it out of order and you end up having to do a lot more deleting than you should. So, order operations. So now, let's see, which one here is next? So exercise 8, which is going to be on page 560. It's pretty far in advance there. Let's see. Okay, so we're actually at the end of the chapter exercises now. And this one's not too bad actually. So all you're doing is drawing a, I guess you would say like a lotus shape of arbitrary size. So I'm going to choose whatever feels right. So we'll draw a circle to start with at, let's do, how about 7, 6? Let's do that. Okay. So from here, I'm going to draw a circle, how about 3.5 in size, radius. And then we're going to use a command called divide. And it's hard to immediately tell what it's actually doing, but I'll kind of demonstrate that. For now, I'm going to count how many petals we have. So we have 8 splits that are going to happen on the circle. But it doesn't give us a radius size. I'm just going to draw an arc and then we'll do a polar array on it. I don't want to work too hard here. So first things first, I'm going to select the circle and type in divide. Well, okay, so now I got to select it again. That's fine. Dang it. Okay. Divide, select the object. Okay, so now it wants how many pieces are going to be cut of this. I want to make it into 8 sections. So nothing changes. You know, you look at it, I select it, and you kind of see some extra points in here if I'm selecting around. You know, like those are there. So that's pretty cool. But the thing is, when I try to draw to those, there's no suggestion. In order to actually be able to snap to them, you then have to go into your snap settings and turn on node. So now, when I'm over in that area, you see this special snap option. It kind of looks like a center mark option. Well, not really, but kind of. You know, it's a different symbol. But basically, yeah, you know, you're going to be able to snap to those now. So now we have those, we can go ahead and draw a lotus shape for one of the sides of a petal anyways. And I keep forgetting that you got to choose a midpoint. So I'm going to choose here and then hover to get our edge for the center mark. And then I'm going to lazily mirror this, and then we'll do a polar array. You could technically go and draw all these in, and that would be good practice, you know, to go through and snap to each one or whatever, but you know, you're going to end up with these imperfect shapes like this, and that's not what you really want. So we're just going to do a mirror, type in mirror, hit enter to select it. I'm going to choose from here to here to ensure that I got the perfect midpoint. I want to keep the original, so I'm just going to leave it on no and hit enter. And then from here I can just go and do a, whoops, don't do that. Undo. I'm going to choose the drop down for array and choose polar. And then, you know, I'll have to choose a center point. And by default, it goes to 6 items. We're going to change that to 8. And hit close. There we go. And just like that, you have the lotus from the book. Which, you know, mine doesn't look the exact same, but it's a general premise. As long as you've got that general idea that you know how to divide, you know how to do your array and mirror, you're pretty much golden. Okay, so up next is exercise 9, page 560 as well. And that's going to be Imperial Units. And this one's not too bad. Let's start it. Let's see, how about, let's do this one at 5.6. And what am I going to do for this point? It's going to be the middle, the, what would be the center line. That's what I'm going to draw right now. So it's 5. And then let's see, I'm going to draw the circle on the far right, which is a radius of 1.27. Let's turn the snap back off. Okay, so from here, we have an offset of 1.75. And that's going to be the far left. I just like to get a little bit of shape by drawing that over here first. So this is going to be the far ends. So I can go ahead and just connect this. And then we're going to go 1.31 over. Okay, and that's going to be where that ends. And then we're going to have like the flag or the wing looking shape. So and that's going to be 2.63. Okay, so we can do an extend command, extend this over, and I forgot to offset the other side, so we'll go ahead and do that. Extend again. Trim out the fat here. Okay, and I'm going to delete the center line, just clear it up a little bit. Okay, so from here, we have 2.63 that we can use, and it's going to be from this back line again. And I will just extend it as well. And this will be where that taper begins. And then we have an offset of 3.25. And I guess technically I could have extended all this one go, but you know, I'm kind of just doing this as we start. I'm not really looking ahead, so you know, I'm not exactly well versed in these myself as we're doing them, which is kind of fair. You know, when everybody's doing these, they've never done them either. So okay, so now we have that other end of the taper that we're getting by drawing this line both directions, and I'll have to do oh, goof there. I accidentally duplicated that line in the middle. Have to extend this out, and this is going to be the end of our taper. So now that we've got it located in both directions, we can go ahead and just go endpoint to endpoint, closing it in, and let's do some trimming. delete this guy. Go ahead and delete some of this construction geometry. Okay, so now from here, all we're going to do is draw from the quadrants. Make sure you got your ortho on. Just draw from the quadrants over arbitrarily, and let's trim out the excess. All right, so now it's starting to look just like it. The only thing we really need to do now is locate the hole, which is going to be 1.5 over, and it's a diameter of 1.53. Okay, so we do have, let's see, we have fillets of 0.25. So let's trim that out. Okay. And then, this is where you would go through and dimension it if required. I'm going to just add in the final things we need here, which is going to be our center marks. And then this is where you're kind of playing around with settings a little bit. But so from here, you really need your center line to extend to the end of the part. And then you either need to grab this end or this end and make it touch the other. And it's not a perfect science. You kind of have some overlap, but I mean, what you want is an uninterrupted center mark. You do get this little overlap. You can kind of see if you look closely, like a little, maybe from right here, you can see like a little bit of excess green. It's a little darker. That's where the lines overlap, but you need it to be continuous. And this is really, unfortunately, the best way to go about it. There's not like a multi-center line option. But so you could do dimensions. I'm not going to worry about it. So up next is exercise 10. And this one's metric. So we'll fire up a metric B. And this one's going to revolve around tangent, radius, circles a ton, obviously. So let's get into it. And we're going to draw that bottom right area first, since everything kind of hinges on that center circle that also is concentric to those bottom circles. So let's see. Let's do a diameter of 40 circle first. And let's draw it down here somewhere. How about right here? What is this? 200, 100. We'll draw it right there. And we're going to draw 40, 60, and then finally 88. Now I should have my bad, that one's actually radius. On this one, I should have made sure to turn it on center marks anyways, so it worked out. There's 88. Okay, and I will trim away some of this later. So we can go ahead and draw a vertical line and horizontal line to where the crossing is with the center circle, and this will give us the locations for the other sets of circles. So now we have a radius of 40. A diameter of 48, diameter 24, radius 30, and I'm gonna go ahead and delete these. Now from here, the big thing is gonna be tan radius to finish this area out. So I'm gonna do down here first a radius of 30. And then on the right, it's going to be 68. And then we've got 78. So let's trim out some of this. Now this is where, the center line circle kind of gets in the way. But just, make sure you're getting every little piece here. And we can trim out this part, but make sure you get this little bit. Same up here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do from here, it's really hard to go about this in a perfect way, I guess you would say. So usually what I like to do is just go ahead and trim it. See, we're gonna completely get rid of, you know, like this portion on the bottom right, but we still need a little bit past here. So what I've done typically, and I don't really like it, but I don't think there's a perfect way to do this, and if anybody knows one, feel free to let me know. You can either draw a line that's tangent to this and then offset it, or you can just kind of generically follow the path and then give it an extension of 0.125, like just draw a, 0.125 in inches. So let's see, what is 0.125 to millimeters from inches? So that would be 3.17. Yeah, 3.175. So what I'm going to do is make sure I didn't draw a little line there. So roughly in position, draw a line that seems to be somewhat aligned to it. It's not going to be perfect, but 3.175. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just draw a line perpendicular to it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, you're really just kind of winging it. There's not an extension option, but then you can just extend the circle to where that would be, and you get a rough look of what it should look like. Now, is this perfect? No. I hate it, actually, but sometimes you get painted in a corner. This is one of those times, so. And I'm just going to do roughly perpendicular and pull it, delete this guy. And this is the kind of petty stuff that it'll help like for viewing it, but you don't really feel great about it. So now we can go in and do our center marks. And we've got the big one here. I'm actually going to choose this circle. Well, it takes up too much space, but I'm still going to roll with it. Yeah, it's fine. And I'll just grab these grips, pull them to the top. Same with this one. And then these over here, I'm going to actually just pull inward to touch the end of the quadrants. Perfect. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then from here, you know, you could dimension as needed. And then, you know, you may be wondering, well, what about these circles? Yeah, I actually do prefer that they have center marks too. You get that horizontal one that's, you know, it's a little easier to be implied at that point that you know, like this center is shared with this circle. Like you can tell visibly, but to have that confirmation, that part's nice. So I encourage you to put these. You don't have to, but maybe you should. So from here, we have exercise 11 on page 561. And it's also going to be in Imperial Units. And let's draw this one. Let's see, from the bottom left is where we're going to start. Well, I guess we could technically do it from wherever. How about... Yeah, we'll start with the bottom left. So from the bottom left, let's do it about right here. 5, 5. Turn off this grid snap. And what we will do is draw 0.937 over. And then up 0.25. And then I'm actually going to stop right there, and I'm going to draw the 0.375 tall line, and then we can offset that one. 2.563. And this is going to be where that gap ends. So I can go ahead and trim that out. And then we have a line of 3.5 to the other end. So now you kind of tell. We can just connect this bottom line. And there we go. We have the general bottom shape. And then we're going to have a line that connects here and here. And then, let's see. So it's an overall height from there of 1.5. I'm going to draw the center line, 1.5 tall. And then let's see, what is half of 2.375? 1.1875. So I'm going to draw a line 1.1875. Double check to make sure that's what it said. And then we can actually just grab this point and do the same, 1.1875. And all we did was pretty much extend that line, but it's a little easier sometimes rather than offset. And then I'm just going to bring this down. We can trim that. Okay, so we need some fillets of 0.375. Trim these. And we're going to get this line and this line. Okay, so from here, from the top, we're going to start drawing that middle portion. So from the top, we're going to offset 0.75 down, and this is going to mark the center of our circle, which is radius 0.563. So choose the center point. And then we've got 0.5 diameter. And we'll just draw down. And make sure you trim this little tidbit right here. Okay, so the only thing we're missing now, there is that little bit that has a line on it down here on that little middle feature. So we'll just trim out this part, and then we have our dotted lines to do. Now the reason we didn't do it all as one feature earlier is because these are going to be different lines. So I'm going to draw these in, trim them, and then we'll change them to hidden line. Okay, so let's see. I guess the only thing we're missing now is the center marks, and if you're going to do dimensions, you know, put them in. Now for this one, the center mark is not adjusted at all. It's going to be as is, so nothing to it. And that's actually going to be it for this one. Pretty straightforward little part. So up next is on page 562, problem solving exercise 1. And this one's going to be Imperial as well. Now this one is a good one for using the polar arrays, because you know you're not going to want to draw each of these over and over again. So to start, I'm just going to choose one of these circles and start drawing. So let's do the 1.7 one first. And I'm going to choose, looks like 7.6 would be pretty solid. Yeah, 7.6. Okay, so we have 1.7, 2.89, and we have 4.25. Now this one is going to be a hidden line. Really, it should be a center. So actually, let's make that a center. 4.25. And then we have 5.1. These are going to be those little thin pieces on the outside. And 5.44. So I mean, in a situation like this, it starts to get a little jarring because you have so many pieces, but I feel like if you have that one as a center line, you won't be so confused. You can kind of see the differentiation there. So then, you know, you're going to be drawing all these tabs. Technically, you could draw the one up here, but if you're going to do a polar array, it's always easier to work with the lowest hanging fruit. So let's do one of these horizontal tabs. If you do those, you know, it takes no effort to draw a horizontal line that connects to the end and then, you know, do work. But if you're having to do it at an angle, there's a good room for error when you can just pattern it anyway. So we'll draw one over here. And if you look closely, it's really hard to tell where these tabs go. I'm honestly kind of flexible when I grade these just for that reason. But I'm going to do what I personally like, which, you know, is basically going to be, you've got, you know, your three circles that are touching each other. We're going to use, let's see. We're going to use the center, the 0.22 circle, residing on the outside circle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. And then we have a radius circle of 0.26. It's going to share the same circle center. So go ahead and draw that one in. and then 0.43. Okay, I'm actually just double checking and make sure I have this in the right spot. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim out everything except for the smallest circle. So I'm just gonna weed out this little area, make it a little easier to see. Trim out whatever we can. And let's see. I may have actually trimmed the wrong spot there. I did, so. Okay, so what we want to do is keep this region. So it'd actually be easier to do it like this. Let's trim this part out. And then this part will feed into everything. So we want to keep none of this. And then we can just delete out this bit. And this, just to clear it up a little bit. Now you're noticing, hey, you know, these points, they're really sharp, not great. That's where you're going to go ahead and do some fillets. Okay, fillets are 0.1, so we can go ahead and start putting those in. So we will do it here, 0.1. And then, you know, it's going to be the same here as well. Not sure what happened right there. It was weird. So we can just delete that, get some trim in here. Okay, so now it looks like something. So from here, you know, make sure that you go ahead and put in your center mark too. You can actually pattern a center mark as well, so it'll save a little bit of time, you know, going ahead and putting it in the beginning. And now I'm gonna put the big center mark, the overall one. And now that you're looking at it, you know, it looks more like it should look. Now technically, you know, like when you're looking at this arc and the center mark, it would still cross through the center. And you've got your little path that goes fully around. That's kind of what I've been visualizing to help me see where it's going to be. And then from there, you're just going to pattern. So once you're sure that it's good, just do polar array, choose what you want to pattern. And we want to do everything but these edges here. So we're going to grab all of this meat and this guy and this, and then the center itself, obviously. Yeah, and that'll be it. So I can go ahead and hit enter, choose our center point, and then just like that. So it'll trim, or it won't trim, but it'll make the shape. So then what you have to do is just go through and trim out, you know, this tidbit here on each of them, and the same for the outside. Now considering you saved a lot of time, it's not that big of a deal versus drawing each of these, which would be a pain. Now you may find when you're doing yours, you know, you may, on these, yours may not be so steep. The only reason that I keep it this way is because when you're looking at it, you usually don't put a fillet on something like that. Now I guess technically, if I were to do this and then do the fillet, it would look better, but that's kind of a leap. So I would accept it this way, or if you drew a line straight out and trimmed it, I would accept that. And honestly, looking at it, it's just hard to tell. If they were a little more clear about it, I would do it that way because I think it aesthetically does look better. But just know there is a little flexibility because of the vagueness. You know, it's always open to interpretation. So, you know, do what you think looks best for what you're doing. Sometimes you just have to make assumptions. I feel like there's a little piece right there. There is. I guess technically it would be quicker if I trim this edge and then just delete. So let's do that. Alright, almost there. Okay, so now we've got our general shape. Now you could go in and throw in dimensions as needed or whatever, but that's the general idea behind this one. You know, I really do like the the lines being straight instead though, so if you're into that, by all means feel free to do so. But it's all good. So up next is problem solving exercise number 2, and that's also going to be Imperial. And this one's kind of it looks like a doozy, but it's really not once you get into it. So we'll start with let's do the top left point. So we'll start it around right here, 4, 7. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a line, 2.375, the overall height there. And I'm going to start offsetting stuff, and then we'll just work with it. So first thing is the slot, 0.625. And then we got offset 0.875 from that slot. Whoops. Then we can offset 2.125 from the end. And then we have an offset of 0.375, and this is going to be like that rib section like the bottom has. And then finally, offset of 1.875 from the far rib end to the end of the part. And it's kind of hard to visualize this, but you know, if you're looking at the book really hard while you do this, it helps a lot. So from here, I can just go ahead and close out the part shape. And let's offset the bottom 0.375 rib. And we can clear this up pretty quick if we trim out this and that rib. And now you can kind of tell what's going on a little bit. So from here, we're going to work on that. Let's work on the 2 left slots first. It's 0.625. And then from there, the slot from center to center is going to be 0.75. Now our slots themselves are 0.438. So I'm going to do it's diameter. I'm going to do a intersection snap. I'm going to turn it on, turn off the node, by the way. Excuse me. Okay, so we've got it, and then I'm just going to copy it and paste it to our other 3 slot points. Okay, and then we can draw these points here. I'm going to delete all this extra geometry now and trim away. Okay, so now we can go and do the slot on the other side, and we'll add in center points when we're all said and done. So it's going to be 0.5 offset down and to the left, and that's going to be our first point. So from here, there's a couple of ways to do this. It doesn't actually give you the size for it, I see. So what we're going to do is actually copy one of these other slots. And you know what? Since we're going to do that, let's actually go ahead and put in those center marks. It'll be easier if we have them copied to begin with versus adding it in later. And then it doesn't matter which, just pull one of them to the other endpoint. That way you have a complete, you know, center path there. So I'm going to copy this guy, and then I will just grab the center and paste it onto this intersection point. And then very carefully, I'm going to select everything but, well, I just delete all that. I'll take everything, and then I'm going to do a rotate. I'm going to choose this center, and then I'm going to put it on polar instead. And what we want to do is hover and see what value we're looking for. So we're looking for 325. So I'm going to top that just to make sure I get it exact. And then just like that, it's a reposition. It's 45 degrees from where it should be basically. That's just because 360 degrees minus 45 degrees is oh, actually I think I repositioned it wrong. Should be 315. Yeah, I'm one of the tops. It's more of a work smarter, not harder with this stuff, so sometimes I may miss the numbers too. Okay, so we're looking for 315. So you can visually see it looks about right. Type in enter, and there we go. That looks more like it. If you wanted to, you could verify this though, just for the sake of checking. You could grab a reference point. So like I'm going to choose the ending there, and then here, and I could dimension both ways, and it should equal because you're basically 45 degrees both ways. So those values should be the same there. So that's a good way to check it. And then the only thing we're left to do now is pretty much to add in our other set of center mark and adjust that grip. And bingo. From here you could add your dimensions and whatnot. Whether they're required or not is up to whoever. And then let's see. The last one we have here is problem solving exercise 3. So this guy's going to be huge. I'm going to use the same template, but it's not going to fit in here. So basically what you're doing is you're drawing a house-sized drawing. Like this is going to be something that would fit in your living room, ideally. So I'm going to just delete the title block area, not even bother with the grid. Instead, first we need to go to Units. You can type in Units to bring that up. And let's see, we're going to want to change this to Architectural. And as you see, it immediately changes your precision to show a 1/16 of an inch. And it doesn't tell us any kind of settings it wants in particular, so that's going to be fine. And if you are dimensioning this, you definitely are going to have to change your dimension settings as well. You would want to go through the same process, go to Dimensions, hit the little button, hit Modify, and then your primary units you would change to Architectural as well. And you'll see now it shows the it's hard to tell, but you can see it shows inches and whatnot. So, but once you do that, then you're allowed to type in feet instead of inches. So like I can do, for instance, I can type in 1 and then a single apostrophe foot, and it'll draw a 12-inch long line just like that, rather than having to type in 12, or then you're trying to do the math converted in your head. It's easier just to be able to type in the native format that it's wanting to use. So let's draw a circle, and I'm going to do it at 6'6". That's going to be my starting point for this circle, which is, I did a line. Whoops. Start at 6'6", and it's going to be a ½ foot in size. So I'm just going to type in 6. It's 6 inches. Okay, so then we need, let's see. We're going to do the same thing. I don't want to draw all these chairs, nor do you. So we're just going to draw one chair in the easy spot, and then we'll pattern it. But we do have a little bit of work to do here in the middle. So let's see. Well, actually, this is the small circle. I was reading that wrong. So there's our 6. That's the smallest one. Then we have one that's 1 foot. So I can just type in 1 single apostrophe. This one will actually be hidden. And the dotted lines are really small. This is another thing that you end up having to play with when you do a giant drawing. You would want to adjust the LT scale to make it look right. So now we're going to do a 4 foot diameter circle. Okay, so definitely going to have to play with the LT scale. We'll do that at the end. And then it has this like chair at 60. I'm just going to draw that line once we patterned it. There's no point in taking all that time to try to set it up, so we won't bother. So we can go ahead and it's debatable how you go about this. I'm going to draw the chair out in space and I'll move it into place because you can do that pretty easy and work smarter, not harder. So first we have the chair base at 16 or 1'4" you could type in. Then we have these legs or arms that are going to be 1 foot from the center. So I'm just going to draw a line 6 inches one way. Oops, didn't take. 6 this way. Then I'll grab the end, pull it the other way, and just type in 6 again. And it looks like it's 2 inches thick. So we can go ahead and offset that, close it in. And then I think there's fillets. There are. So we're going to do a 0.5 fillet. Okay, go through, rinse and repeat. Just trim that. Oh. You always got to be careful. If you don't have it in the viewing area, it likes to just delete stuff that it shouldn't. I don't know if anybody's noticed that yet, but if I were to zoom in too far and trim, it'll probably delete crap that there's a boundary. It just doesn't see it. I've never understood why I did it, but I'm sure there's a use case. Alright, so I'm going to copy this guy. And we're going to grab this point so we can just place it right on that ending. And let's see, so we have a circle, a radius of 9 it says. And 11. Now essentially, you know, that basically means that you could have just offsetted 2 inches, but it's easier to do this. And then we're given an angle of 90. So what I'm going to do is just draw this line just for reference. And then I'm going to put this on, oh, that's kind of weird. I put it on 45, 90, whatever. And then I'm just going to draw from this point until I get that snap. Should be like right here somewhere. There we are. See the snap, 135. And I'm moving until I see that again with the dotted lines. There we go, 225. And then I'm just going to trim everything outside of that for the back. So then I can do the same here very carefully. You know, honestly, to not mess up, it's probably easier just to trim out this bit and then delete this. So in my case, that's what I'm going to do. And then we can trim a little more here. Oh no, you know what? I trimmed too much earlier. Let's undo that. Forgot about the base. So, okay, so we need to trim these two. So we can trim there. Go ahead and get rid of some of this. There we go. That's starting to look like the back of a chair now, right? Okay, so now technically this part isn't here, so we can get rid of it. And then are there fillets? No, but there should be, right? I mean, shouldn't there be fillets? It's fine. We'll do exactly what the book does. So now, move it, grab that quadrant, snap it to the other quadrant, and you're sitting pretty. From here, you know, we can just do our polar array again, select all the goods. I accidentally got the big circle, so I'm gonna hold shift. And then I'm just gonna hit right click to confirm, choose our center point. And how many chairs do we have? Perfectly 6, cool. From here, you know, technically, if you wanted, you would probably want to have that center mark already in there. So I'm gonna actually undo. I forgot that it did end up adding center marks. So let's go ahead and choose that, go back to home, change it to center, and choose this guy. And we'll choose the table, because YOLO and stuff. Okay, so now, polar array again, and then I'm just going to select everything, deselect the big center mark and that big circle, confirm. Okay, there we go, looking good. So, you know, you can do that pretty quick, and then obviously, since this is such a big drawing, I just decided to leave the title block out in space. From here, it wants that line, so we can just go ahead and draw a center line here. Now, I don't advise drawing. You know what? Actually, perfect. I forgot about this. I just grab this point. No, I can't. Disregard. If you didn't have a pattern, you could. But in this case, I'm just going to continue that extension onto here. And then, you know, you could do your dimension to verify it's actually correct. It should be 60 from here to here. As you can see, it is. Now, again, you would have to scale your dimension text up since, you know, this drawing is gigantic. That would be another thing to play around with. But I do not require you dimension, so not in this exercise. So you don't have to worry too much about it, but keep that in mind. Just like you would want to go around and play with your dimensions themselves, like the amount that it hangs past the object. Technically, you would want to scale that out a bit to match the proportions you're on. Let's play around with the LT scale. Now, I never really messed with this, but say, let's put in a foot instead. That looks about perfect. So that's a good rule of thumb though. So like essentially, LT scale changes the spacing on lines, the line type scale. So if you're making something 12 times bigger than the default, in our case we're drawing with feet instead of inches, you can generally just do 12. By default it's 1, which means 1 to 1, just standard. So we're doing 12 times, or 1 foot. And there you go. Just like that, your stuff looks fine. Your dimensions you still have to adjust, but that's one piece of the puzzle. You're fixing pretty easy. So, but that's going to be it. I hope everybody enjoyed, and if anybody has any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching.